Good afternoon, everyone, and a very, very warm welcome to today's session on restoring the subtle heart. And the use of the word restoring means the heart has lost its wholesomeness. And the word subtle is used to describe the heart in terms of making a distinction between the physical heart and the non-physical heart. So it isn't really the physical heart. It is not really the physical heart that needs to be restored. It's the non-physical heart that needs to be restored. It's the subtle heart. And so I want to play a track for you, just about 4 minutes of it, just to give you an idea as to what the world outside think of this sort of conversation in terms of looking at the subtle heart and the fact that it needs to be restored. So I just want to play this song so that we can really understand the lyrics and relate it to today's talk. And it's by someone called Al Green. Some of you may have heard your parents or even yourself have really made have an understanding of this person. But I think it really tells the story very, very clearly about the difference between the subtle and the physical heart, and how much pain we experience when we do not understand these two aspects and look for love and attention outside ourselves.
When living for my life was everything a man could want to do, I could never see tomorrow. I was never told about the sorrow. And how can you mend a broken heart? How can you stop the rain from falling down? Tell me, how can you stop the sun from shining? What makes the world go round? And how can you mend this broken man? Yeah. How can a loser ever win? Somebody please help me mend my broken heart, and let me live again. La la la. I can still feel the breeze that rustles through the trees, and misty memories of days gone by. But we could never see tomorrow. Would you believe that no one ever told us about the sorrow? So how can we mend a broken heart? the rain from falling down? Can you stop that old sun from shining? What makes the world go round? And sometimes I have to say, la 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 la, yeah. La 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 la. Tell me.
So I hope that you could hear some of the lyrics to give a picture, because the lyrics do paint an important picture in terms of what we are aiming to look at today. So some of the questions in the lyrics: how can you mend a broken heart? How can a loser ever win? I was never told about the sorrow, referring to he was never told about the sorrow of life. Another question: how can you stop the rain? How can you stop the rain from falling down? Indicating that if it rains, then we can't be happy. Another question: how can you stop the sun from shining and make the world go round? So indicating that if the sun isn't shining, the world cannot go round. It just says a lot about the extent to which we are dependent on external stimuli to make us happy. How can a loser ever win? Somebody help me, please. Mend my broken heart and let me live again. So the lyrics say a lot about how humans are emotionally dependent on each other, as well as external circumstances to make us happy. So the physical heart is really the closest organ to the soul. And just as the soul keeps the body alive, the subtle heart keeps the physical heart pumping energy in the form of blood through our veins and keeps the body alive in that way. So it's the subtle heart that needs restoring and could impact the physical heart if the sadness, if the emotional pain is left in the subtle heart for a long period of time. So in our search for external approval, or should I say true love, the subtle heart becomes vulnerable. The subtle heart becomes frozen. It becomes shattered into many pieces, as the poster suggests, the image on the poster. So it becomes really shattered into pieces as we move around, leaving bits of our self-respect in relationships or in situations that fail to satisfy our needs. So the lyrics says, how can you mend a broken heart? And I would say the way to mend a broken heart is that we have to reclaim our self-respect, heal and restore the subtle heart in doing so. We need to really find a way of being able to give without feeling depleted and drained and without fear of being let down and hurt again. So that is really an idea of the kind of journey that we need to make in really restoring the heart back to equilibrium. So, as I said, my answer to this question is that we can grasp the significance of self-awareness. This is what I'm talking about when I talk about self-respect, going back to self. So it's about, you know, understanding the significance of self-awareness and bring to the understanding the essence of our true self and bring that into action through introspection and through meditation. So when self-awareness is switched on, and self-awareness means having a relationship with myself, but also having the knowledge and the understanding of myself. So when self-awareness is switched on, the power of choice to stop the cycle of heartbreak and being dependent on external approval is also switched on. So an understanding of the self, which is knowledge, and as you can remember going back to the lyrics, he said, nobody told me that about the sorrow that I would have to experience. So an understanding of the self, which is knowledge, coupled with meditation, is like putting the self into a laboratory where we become the observer of the self, where we become the observer and we can see that all the emotional pain and hurt was self-inflicted. Because why? Because we lost our self-respect through forgetting who we are. So in the observer mode, when I've moved my awareness from that need for being approved of externally, when I go inside myself in that observer mode, I can see that the situation, the person, or the thing that triggered the pain and hurt is reflecting back to me the negative mindset that keeps me imprisoned inside my comfort zone of lack of self-respect and dependency on the external to provide me with this sense of security. So to use a typical example of how we search outside ourselves to have our need for love, happiness, and fulfillment met, many of us as children were brought up by parents who themselves weren't emotionally cared for by their own parents. There was little or no validation and acknowledgement of their existence or their identity as such, on top of which they may have experienced psychological, emotional, or physical abuse. And what this means is that love and joy, being one of the two main qualities of the soul, will have been deeply hidden, deeply hidden. And I want you to just think of the image of an onion, and that the core of the onion is the true you, the part of you that has all those inherent qualities and virtues, which are all positive and which are there to help you to empower yourself. But because of the layers hiding the true you, the core of the onion, yes? So it's very difficult for us to really get to. So the So the more recent, painful, or negative childhood experiences will have been like the layers covering the really true, pristine part of who you are. So this is how the cycle of broken hearts or heart that needs to be restored continues throughout our life experiences unless we can take affirmative action to break it. So without self-awareness, which is not really having any understanding of my true self, I naturally look for true love and happiness from people, places, circumstances, and things, all of which are outside of myself. However, as we go through life and we experience a number of failed relationships and we become worn down by not being approved of by others, the penny slowly drops and we realize that we are facing in the wrong direction. And why is this? I think I've alluded to that already, but let's just unpack it a bit more. First, human interaction is based on the exchange of energy. We're either coming from an ego-based mind or we're coming from the heart-based mind. If we're coming from the ego-based mind, then we're looking for external things to make us feel good about ourselves. If we're coming from a heart-based mind, we are having our needs met from within, which means that we are able to tap into the core of the onion and access those gems, those qualities and virtues that we can use to make us feel good about ourselves. So through thoughts, feelings, and through emotions, we are either using the heart-based self or we're using the ego-based self. So as I mentioned earlier, self-awareness plays a very, very important part in this exchange, which then has an impact on the subtle heart. In other words, my emotional and my spiritual health and well-being, they are compromised. So on one hand, referring to the heart-based self, self-respect is intact. And on the other hand, referring to the ego-based self, self-respect is lacking. And whichever side I find myself, this is what I have to give. If I'm coming from an ego-based mind, that's what I have to give. And until I know differently, if I'm coming from a heart-based mind, that's beautiful. That's what I have to give. So to break this down even more, relationships is about people interacting and reflecting back to each other in the same way as each is holding up a mirror in front of the other. So in each mirror is the reflection of what's occurring in each other's minds. And just to give a typical example of two people in a relationship who are really attached to each other, but they're coming from an ego-based mindset. So the words, I love you, could be translated as, I can't live without you, or if you leave me, I will die, or I wasn't loved as a child. So these would be what those words, I love you, could be translated as, depending on my background, what happened in my childhood and where I'm coming from in terms of my awareness, ego-based self or heart-based. Now, this isn't love, it's dependency, but I am not really aware that on an energetic level, this is what I'm really communicating. I will think it's love. Because these words, I love you, is literally taken as such, when in fact, in terms of the awareness behind the words, it's very, very different story. It's another world. So this is really such a very strong message that I don't know myself. And if I don't know myself, I can't love myself. And if I don't love myself, how can I love another person? When we operate from an ego-based perspective, in order to function, the ego drains the capacity of the subtle heart, which then becomes broken, hardened, vulnerable, and weak. So, for example, with change being the only constant in life, all relationships are subject to tests and challenges and obstacles. And it's at these times when, for example, the rudder hits the road or the proof of the pudding becomes the eating, that it really, really becomes clear as to the well-being of the subtle heart for each person involved. So to what extent do I love myself? To what extent can I be compassionate towards myself? How do I respond to the experiences of abuse or other types of issues that come up in a relationship from time to time? Do I keep going in and out of failed relationships on the rebound? The rebound meaning that you don't give time to yourself to allow yourself to get over, the trauma of ending a relationship. What I do is I try to dull the pain by going straight into another relationship. And what that means is that, the molehill is becoming much more of a mountain. And the challenges that I will have experienced in the earlier relationship will be more mountainous in the next relationship. So when I'm in love with myself, and the whole idea for some people of being in love with yourself is a bit strange. Some people refer to it as narcissism. But from a self-empowerment, personal development, spiritual angle, it's the best thing that I can actually do, because then what I'm doing is I am equipping myself to be able to be strong when I'm in relationships with other people. So when I am in love with myself, I don't wait for someone to kiss me, to hold my hand, to embrace me, to acknowledge me, to feel loved. And that state of being in love with self creates that feeling that I am love anyway. Because why? Because love is one of the 5 main qualities of the soul, the core of the onion. And when I can tap into that quality of love, then there are lots of other qualities that I have access to. Being generous to the self, being compassionate, being accepting, lots of other beautiful qualities that I can use to really have that relationship that's very nurturing and self-sustaining. So when I understand that I'm loved, then I know I'm loved. And in that kind of awareness, there is no hanging about waiting for Mr. or Miss Right to come along, because I am love itself. If someone does come along the way, that will be the right time too to share myself. Some of the other things that I would question in restoring the subtle heart is, to what extent do I have limiting beliefs about myself? To what extent do I have limiting beliefs about myself? For example, do I think I'm a loser? Do I think I'm a failure? Do I think I am unlovable? Do I think that I am incapable? All of these things are absolutely important for me to begin to really engage with myself in a loving and meaningful way. Another question, do I tend to rely on external validation to feel good about myself? Because if that is the case, then I'd better start working on validating myself. Because if I don't, then I'm not going to really achieve the required goal of empowering myself. Do I find it difficult saying no, which means that I'm putting the needs of others first? We often find ourselves in situations where we just find it so hard to say no. Just the other day, I had to say no, and I had a challenge. It's interesting. I've been saying no for a while, but the fact that it has been a pattern, it does come up from time to time. I found it hard to say no. And what I had to do, I had to sit with myself and really connect with the innermost part of myself and to the divine. And it was only then that I felt really strong internally enough to say to the person, no, I can't do that just now. There are other priorities. And the person really was very, very accommodating, very accommodating. That's very empowering. It's a very basic example, but I think it's very important to add. Another question is, do I tend to have a victim mindset as opposed to having the awareness mindset of being a survivor? Do I, for example, tend to feel, not necessarily say it because it's not a nice thing to say, we're ashamed of saying it, but internally, you know, there's this feeling of poor me. He or she has done this to me. I'm attached to someone or something. That means that I am attached to someone or something that is holding me to ransom. And if I have this kind of victim awareness, victim consciousness about myself, then whatever it is that I am engaging with that has triggered that feeling of victim, it means that that thing has become the abuser. It has become the thing that has power over me. It could be a person, it could be a situation, or it could be a thing. It doesn't matter. It means that that situation that has power over me. If so, I'm the victim, the puppet that dances to the music because I need their approval. I need something from them in order to feel good about myself. So ideally, when we've experienced an abusive childhood, as I described previously, if I've ended an abusive relationship in order to ensure that I break the cycle of dependency on external validation, which repeatedly affects the subtle heart, I need to begin to validate. I need to begin to self-validate. The love relationship I've been searching for outside, I need to start that with myself. And it's a really sure way of developing self-respect and becoming emotionally stable and happy. Now, what I want to do here is I want to show you a slide which gives an example of how we can move from one state of awareness to a, yes. So this slide that I'm about to show you is really, okay. So you can see the slide. So the slide is, it's called Restoring the Subtle Heart. And there is there are the words create, sustain, and transform. And they're very, very important in terms of what we need to do as individuals when we are working on restoring the subtle heart. First, we need to identify what the old belief is, because each belief is played out in the values that things that we hold dear, the way we see life, the perceptions that we hold, the attitudes that we perform, the thoughts that we think, the feelings and emotions and words that we use. So it's about identifying the old belief, which really, in a sense, is the old thought. So in this regard, it could be, I feel rejected, alone, and hurt by the ending of relationships, or when I am not approved of. So once I have identified what the old thought is and the old belief, what I need to do is to create a new thought. Create, sustain, transform. I need to create a new thought, which is really the intention for realignment with the onion core. So what might the new thought be? And this is really just to give you an example as to what the new thought could be in this situation. Change is a natural part of living. It enables me to understand myself, adapt to new situations, and develop self-mastery. Because actually, this is what change really does. These things happen because we've lost our power, our inner power. And, you know, the mistakes, the pain, the challenges that we are experiencing in order to basically climb that mountain back to reach our highest state. I'm sure that makes sense for all of us. So having created the new thought, if I don't do anything with the new thought, then nothing's going to happen. I'm going to still be here, okay? So I need to find a thought that helps me to return to this, to return to the new state of being whenever I get challenged. So the new thought helps me, and this needs to be a repetitive thought. It helps me to pay attention. It helps me to bring the being into action. It helps me to be the change that I've chosen to become. And so it would be something like, when I am challenged by the old thought, I affirm the new thought and bring it into action. It's an action that reflects the new thought. You can play around with this whole idea, this as a way of finding your own thoughts that will work best for you. This is just to give you an example as to what you can do. And then once you have worked with these, having created and sustained mainly the thoughts over a long period of time, and bring the thought into action in terms of your relationship with yourself and your relationship with others and the world around you, then you've become it. You're becoming it gradually, and finally you get to a point where you become it. Transformation is transformation of the old thought belief. I no longer feel the need to be loved by others or be part of something to have an inner sense of security. This is all about how a thought becomes a thing, or thoughts become things. I hope this makes sense. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing this now and pause for some questions. I have a guided meditation, and actually it feels like I need to do the guided meditation first before we pause for question. Is this okay, or should I pause for question first?
It's fine. It's fine. It will empower.
Okay. So shall we do the meditation first? Yes?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Okay. So if it's possible, it would be really nice to have some music in the background so that it can be as comfortable and deep as possible, because music really helps. So allow yourself to become still. Focus on your breath as you take your attention away from the external world, allowing a few deep cleansing breaths to take you inwards, away from the noise, away from any distractions that may be in your environment, as you go into that inner sanctuary of peace. So I'm aware of the breath flowing in and out through my nostrils as I go deeper into my inner world of wonder, my natural habitat, where healing takes place. The thoughts become quiet and the body becomes soft and still. As breathing deepens and you let go, you let yourself go. Get really comfortable as you observe your breath flowing in and out through your nostrils, as you sink deeper into your seat. And whatever story you have been telling yourself, you can tell that outer voice to go quiet now. And you can invite in a kinder, gentler voice as you sink deeper inside yourself. And you hear that kinder, gentler voice, a voice from deep within you, thanking you for taking this time out today to acknowledge and honor this greater part of you. And in doing so, giving to yourself. In this state of detached awareness, you become the observer of how the impact of life's challenges has shaped you, caused you pain, and the feeling of being imprisoned by deep-rooted habits as you try to navigate your way through the obstacle course of life. Yet, you can also see clearly that you hold the key to your freedom. Lack of self-respect, to self-awareness and respect. And through this experience, you have found the gems of self-knowledge to restore the subtle heart, seeing yourself as a soul, a point of sparkling light, located at the center of the forehead. You become merged within and merged with the universal source of light, supreme light, your true parent, your true friend, the source of your non-physical, immortal identity. You become an orb of light, weightless, beyond gravity, floating in the dimension of light, in this detached awareness of forgiveness, of self-compassion. You can see how the challenges of the past have also shaped you to become a seeker of the truth about your true self. It is in this place of healing that you can experience true love, loving yourself no matter what, accepting yourself for who you truly are, and wholeheartedly forgiving yourself and others without judgment. With this practice, gently and lovingly, you're opening the door to healing your own heart and mind. And at the same time, open the hearts and minds of others. And for now, I would like to invite you to bring your awareness fully to your breathing, letting go of everything else, coming back to the awareness of the space around you. And gradually and gently, you return your awareness to being in this room